Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to the other side of the wormhole. What didn't make it in the episodes of the But Why Though podcast. As always, I'm your host, Matt. And today we're going to be talking about episode 2, Celebrity Deaths. This is another one of these episodes I was not on. And so I'm just going to kind of go through everything and see, I guess, give my intake on everything. Whatnot. So for you guys that are not familiar with the show and what we're doing here, basically I'm a host for the But Why Though podcast, and we do about an hour. We release episodes every Wednesday on basically various apps and podcast stuff such as iTunes, Stitcher, and everything else. Obviously we'll have stuff going through the bottom so you can see and come check us out. But we do these topics, and they're only about an hour long episodes, but we have a lot more to say than just what we can fit into an hour. So this is kind of like what didn't make it into the episode, maybe as I like to call it, the lost thoughts of the But Why Though podcast and stuff. So I'm just going to kind of go through episode 2 that we did. This was a long time ago. This is our very second episode in the podcast, so it was very new. It's called Celebrity Death Curse. And so looked at 2016 and all the celebrity deaths that occurred in that year and how they're relevant and how people treat celebrity death in some cases, or in most cases. And this episode, they looked at Kate, and at the time, Tom and Adrian looked at Van Wilder, Muhammad Ali, and I want to pronounce his name correctly, Anton Yelkin. Because the guy from Star Wars and Troll Hunters and a few other things. So, let's just start off with, not Van Wilder. Gene Wilder. I'm sorry, I correct this. It was Gene Wilder, not Van Wilder. I am sorry. For those of you who wonder what I was reading, also, all these things are basically broadcast live on our Twitch TV channel at But Why Though PC/Twitch TV. And so we'll have some interaction with the chat going on. Things might occur. These really aren't edited. It's just kind of more of a live action. We'll be talking, me talking for this episode. Sometimes we have other people on and whatnot. So yeah. So that's why it goes. So Gene Wilder died in 2016, has been corrected. So we start off with, they look at like what's the best part of 2016, whether it was the worst year of celebrity deaths, whether it was, because apparently they all happened kind of, I guess a lot of people died. I mean, everybody's getting old these days, so obviously they are going to be dying. A lot more celebrities that we knew from our past be dying. So I guess they're exactly died. They have the exact list of, for those of you who don't remember last year. Hopefully anybody does remember. 2016 was not a great year. Of course, 2017 been a fun time, almost like a complete dumpster fire from 2016 stuff. But anyways, I digress. So we got David Bowie, Prince, Alan Rickman, Ron Glass, Alexis Arquette. If I mispronounce these names, I apologize. Doris Roberts, Juan Gabriel, George Michael, Carrie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds, Florence Henderson, Kenny Baker. I guess Nancy Reagan is a celebrity. Oh, even a first lady. Yeah. Merle Haggett, Alan Thicke, John Glenn, Leonard Cohen, Harper Lee, and does that say China or China? I guess China. I don't know who that is. I know who most of these celebrities are that they put on these lists, but I'm not familiar with all of them. Obviously, I know who Carrie Fisher is, who played Princess Leia, along with some other roles. China doll wrestler. Okay, that's who I'm told that is. John Glenn was an astronaut. I think he was the crazy astronaut, if I remember correctly. I'm not 100% sure. There's a few of them. There's these old NASA astronauts that were great back in the days and set foot on the moon, and now they're like traveling the country looking for the lost Ark of Jesus or some shit. Alan Thicke, Alan Rickman, Prince, I was a little too young to embrace against Prince music. I never cared for it, but I knew he was very big. The people of Minnesota mourned his death. Of course, they don't have a lot in Minnesota, so that's it. David Bowie, or Bowie, however you want to say it. I enjoyed some of his songs. Kind of sad, but I mean, I don't know how much he's actually performing at that age. I know he was getting up there, but then again, a lot of these rock stars, they perform in their late 70s, if I remember correctly. Doris Roberts, Kenny Baker, Florence Henderson. Just kind of going over the list again. I know I already read it once. I'm trying to think what I know about these people, because I mean, I guess, one, these kind of predate me, so them dying, not, I guess, I'm like, oh, that's sad, but I really didn't, I guess I didn't equate, I guess, if you want to call it like an emotional connection or any type of really connection to some of them, because I didn't like see them in their prime years, and so that kind of doesn't really hit with me. So that's why this whole episode is going to be a little interesting. So I know we talk about celebrity deaths in this episode and why they matter. They kind of broke down 3 examples of people they want to talk about, but then I guess the whole concept of the episode was, do celebrity deaths overall matter? Because I mean, sometimes, yeah, it's sad news. Like when we talked about Anton Yelkin, he died because essentially something malfunctioned in his car or something like that, and basically he got pinned against a mailbox and crushed to death. I mean, it's a freak accident. I mean, stuff like that is just sad. I mean, that's just kind of scary. Today's date is June 23rd of 2017, and I keep seeing the news, like another freak accident, like an Instagram model died from a whipped cream can exploding. I mean, stuff like that. I mean, that's obviously a little more bizarre than like he's, and not quite, I guess, a tragic per se. I mean, death compared to like you were working on your car and you got pinned against a brick pillar of your outside your house. But yeah, so I mean, some of those type of things are freak. I mean, to me, I guess I find them a little interesting because they're like, how'd you die from a whipped cream can, or like what exactly happened that, you know, involved like your car, like just all of a sudden we start rolling and you get stuck. But some of these other people, I mean, they're old. I mean, I'm pretty sure some of them were in their 70s, possibly 80s, I mean, even 60s. And I don't know. I've never been a fan of the whole, we need to like, I get the whole celebrate it, it's sad, but the way some people treat celebrity death amazes me. I guess if you have I guess because these people don't have I guess if you have an interpersonal connection to them, or you met them, that's fine. But I mean, to me, I never met any of these people. They could have probably walked up to me on the streets and I would have never known. I feel like I've met a Kenny Baker before. Probably not the actual Kenny Baker, but that seems like such a generic name. So, I mean, that's just, I don't know. I know they try to touch on this episode. Like I said, I'll probably go over the 3 that they talk about for somewhat and a little more different. But overall, I just have a problem with, I guess especially the older thing. Just kind of hard. Like, Gene Wilder died at the age of 83. Complications of Alzheimer's disease. What did you expect? He's 83 years old. I mean, it's sad, but did nobody see this coming? I guess that's some of the weird things. Besides the freak accidents, some of these people are like, oh my gosh, this person died. He's old. Old people die. I mean, I don't want to downplay death and some of their importance, but at least from a celebrity standpoint, unless they've contributed quite a lot to, I guess, the future of the world or something. I mean, they just played in some movies. I don't know, that sounds horrible, and it feels kind of bad saying stuff like that, but unfortunately for me, it's just, this was an interesting topic, and it was kind of hard to debate how to go about this, because I wanted to, like, because some of these people do need to be celebrated, and it's just tragically, like I said, being pinned against a brick part of your house by a Jeep malfunction, that's one thing. Being 83 years old and you died, because you have a disease that usually occurs most commonly in older people. Not that sad. I mean, it kind of should have been preparing for that. That it was just any day now. And I know Kate in this episode, her original plan was to do Carrie Fisher. The Star Wars just released. They're filming another Star Wars. And so they were getting ready. So she wanted to do Carrie Fisher, and it was kind of almost a given she was going to do it. And I guess, I don't know, it was kind of me. I don't know if it was just because I said something, that's what she chose to switch, or just something. I had asked, how can you do a celebrity death episode without Muhammad Ali? Because at first it was just going to be Carrie Fisher, Gene Wilder, Anton Elkin. Which, yeah, that's great and all, but out of all the people that died that year, Muhammad Ali probably did more for actual society than probably everybody else on this list that I can think of. Sorry, I don't care about Nancy Reagan or Reaganomics. Don't care. But yeah, like, I don't know. Just, Elkin Yelkin, I am sad though, because one, I do enjoy obviously Percent Freak accent. I did enjoy what he played in. So this one, I like talking about this one because I talked about I didn't have a connection to these other people. This one I kind of did a little more sad, just because I had seen some of these movies and he was obviously a lot younger than the other people that had died. I mean, he was only 27 at the time. You know, he's about my age. So yeah, that's a little kind of like, that's a little more freak accent, obviously, and kind of like, so I had seen him in movies. Like, I watched him in the Star Treks. I enjoyed him in Star Treks. I enjoyed Troll Hunters. I was actually very sad this, because they did renew the season. For those of you not familiar, Troll Hunters is a Netflix series that they started on a Netflix original series. I think it's, I want to say it's based on a book, but that's not hard to say. I could probably say that about anything. That he stars as the main character. So they did the whole first season. It got great reviews, you know, everything else. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it is a little anime cartoon. I mean, not necessarily anime, but an animated cartoon. And he dies. And it was kind of like they were stuck, because I'm like, oh. Plus, they left the season on a cliffhanger, so it was kind of like, what are you going to do? So yeah, they did decide to renew the season. I don't know how they're going to portray it, who they're going to get, and whatnot. It's going to be very interesting. So yeah, him, to me, besides his death being, one, a freak accident, two, I kind of watched and kind of, I guess, more invested in his stuff, because it was kind of more of my generation, I guess you could say. Kind of makes it a little more sad. But then again, I was just kind of on everything else. I'm going to have to mention this again. Whoever wrote the show notes at the beginning of this stuff, just not great. So, but yeah. So I'll talk about Gene Wilder. I guess I was sad. I'm just kind of like seeing, he's obviously somebody that I just, it was before my time. So I don't have anything to say. I guess when my generation, I guess people now be in their 40s and 50s, 60s, when they start dying off here in about 20 years or so, then it might be, I might treat it a little differently than what I do now. Since, like I said, a lot of people that are dying now, unfortunately, do not have the connection to watch a lot of their movies. So, yeah. But I do want to talk about Muhammad Ali, because I really felt, out of all people, he needed to be in there, because he made the largest impact. For one, I mean, not only because he was an athlete, he was a great boxer, probably the best boxer of all time. I don't care what you say about Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather is a terrible person. Between the fact that I hate his boxing style, which is however you like it, he doesn't like to hit anything, he dances around and does nothing, to the fact that I'm pretty sure he's assaulted many women. Yeah. The fact that Floyd Mayweather still gets paid probably shows America's finest of how we treat celebrities in this country. But anyways, but the thing about Muhammad Ali, between the boxing inside and what makes him, sets him apart from a lot of athletes is, besides the time it was a big time for civil rights and everything else, is he had a lot of activism. I can't even talk right now. Anyways. But he did a bunch of other stuff. He refused to go to the Vietnam War. He was, from what I'm reading here and from what I knew, he was a pacifist. He fought for racial integration. He was tracked by the FBI. He was a minister in a nation. As he put in quotes here, he would not fight for the freedom of a people when his own people were disenfranchised and not free in the U.S. So he fought for civil rights and didn't want to go to war because he knew at the time black people in this country did not even have their own rights. He did a lot of stuff there. His original name was Cassius Clay, I believe. Yes, Cassius Clay. Before he changed it to Muhammad Ali in 1964, and on his conversion to the Nation of Islam, which at this time in this country does not have a good standing. Which I don't know if it's ever had in this country a good standing, but right now it's even probably worse than what it used to be, if that's possible. So I don't know a lot about all the stuff he did. I'm reading and whatnot and catching up. But I do know he was a big part, and there's a lot of stuff involved. Like I said, the not fighting. I refuse to do this. I think he either went to jail or nearly went to jail over not wanting to be in the draft, not wanting to fight in war, and everything else. Whew. It's been a long week, so we're trying to power through these. So hang in there. I want to be here. I'm trying to get my energy up, get some levels up, but it's been a long work week. Everybody has those type of weeks. So, but yeah. Kate, I'd also like to state that Kate actually got her MA studying the nation. So her notes are dense for a lot of these, for her part of doing Muhammad Ali. Excuse me. Whatnot. I also liked that this episode, we tried for the first time, they used movie clips. So they took clips from each character and basically we played it and everybody got to listen to it and react to it. We eventually do that again later in our charity episodes, which we will be giving. That would be episode 19. Stack Up, which we'll be having another one of those episodes coming up hopefully here within the next few weeks. Just trying to get everything coordinated with everybody. It's a lot harder to coordinate with people than you would think, but people's schedules these days are crazy and whatnot. But back to Cassius Clay, or Muhammad Ali. He was a messenger of peace. He won awards, like I said, for being a messenger of peace for the United Nations, a Lifetime Achievement Award, Presidential Medal of Freedom, Sportsman of the Century from Sports Illustrated, Sports Personality of the Century, BBC, GQ Athlete of the Century. These centuries, by the way, are for 100 years. So this basically from 1901 until 2000 he won for the century. He was the most, biggest athlete of them all, or for what these awards were. He eventually died of septic shock on June 3rd, 2016 in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's not surprising then. He was basically diagnosed with Parkinson's, I believe in the 80s. And so, yeah, he's been battling basically diseases in Parkinson's for a long time. I remember seeing, I think it was the 1995 or 96 Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. I think it was 96, I'm not 100% sure. When he had to light the torch, and it was kind of so emotional, and it was everybody was excited. But then the other side of the coin, it was sad because you could see how much boxing had taken a toll on his body. And between boxing, getting beat to the head, and all the blows, to having Parkinson's and everything, it was just kind of sad looking at him lighting the torch and the struggle sometimes, like seeing him later in life. Especially, I guess, when you can try to compare him to what everybody knew him for when he was younger. So it was kind of sad. That's sometimes sad. I know there was some controversy whether they were just using him as a token, which sucks because obviously he was just old and he was kind of beat down. But yeah, he had 40 SI covers, only second to MJ. Five-time magazine covers. He had Superman vs. Muhammad Ali in 1978 DC Comics. I mean, he did a lot, and he meant a lot to a lot of people. And I think that's why when they did this episode, the fact that nobody chose him was surprising. And I guess it was a little disappointing me, but I'm glad that we eventually came around and did pick him. Because as much as Gene Wilder, like, really great movie star, you know, Anton Yelchin, not saying but they're bad, but, you know, he obviously didn't have time, but they just didn't, overall, in the grand schemes of society, they didn't do as much, at least in my opinion, for people. Apparently Muhammad Ali lived by 6 core principles. The Muhammad Ali Center features an interactive museum, education programming, special events inspire young adults and adults to pursue greatness in their own lives, communities, and countries, confidence, conviction, dedication, giving, respect, and spirituality. I mean, everything I just read in that last thing and all the stuff there had nothing to do with boxing. And so it just shows that he was definitely more of a pop culture icon and had almost as big of impact there as he did in boxing. So, yeah. Going on. Let's see. We got into, like I said, we also, what I noticed, this was the second episode, we've changed the format over the past few months of doing this podcast. So I'm looking at, like, I think from the first few times, everybody got their own kind of section. They got to talk about their section, what they thought mattered, and then they kind of came back and then, you know, like, kind of discussed it. We've kind of moved in a different direction of, like, having, you know, more of a, I guess, almost like a linear flow between everybody, instead of, like, you can talk for this section, you can talk for this section, and you can talk for this section. But that's fine, because like I said, everybody was getting used to their role and how it worked. So basically, like I said, so I read Muhammad Ali's Why They Matter. Now just kind of compare this in the grand scheme of things to, like, why Gene Wilder mattered. He had 22 films, 4 of which he directed, 6 he wrote, 9 TV appearances, 1 memoir, 3 books, nominated for 2 Academy Awards. Young Frankenstein, Golden Globe, introduced the Wisconsin Performing Arts. Subtle genius to hilarious outright wackiness. Actor, director, producer. Whoever wrote this misspelled, like, every other word. Like, there's spell check on here that underlines words that are misspelled. Anyways. And one of the greatest comic actors, because he didn't just read jokes, he learned how to inhabit them. You know, so I mean, I'm listing all this stuff, and these are great, and these are great accomplishments. And they're great, I guess, for the purpose of the podcast, and, you know, for why pop culture matters. Yeah, he matters because he did a lot. He won a lot of awards. He was a great actor, director, producer, and such forth. But I guess to me, when I look at, like, why things matter, especially when we start going into celebrity part stuff, give me somebody who made a difference and fought, you know, for, like, civil rights and integration. That type of stuff to me matters. You know, he set up, you know, interactive museums and educational programming in this damn age. You know how many freaking things we need for educational programming that's lacking right now? Because compared to, basically somebody who's just a great writer. And I feel bad because, I don't want to take away from the accomplishments of things, but to me, I don't know. I want you guys to listen to this episode. I do. And I think you should listen and enjoy. And I think they do a great job with this episode. Explaining their lives, celebrating them. A lot of these people should have their lives celebrated. Because, they are famous, I guess. And they did do a lot of great things, and they were good at their job. But I also come from a different perspective on a lot of this stuff. And way I think of things, and I just don't know how well I would have been on this episode, that's for sure. It's an episode that is good to listen to, and people get to have their nostalgia and everything else, but overall, they got to fulfill their life. Besides Yelkin dying in, a freak accident or something like that. If you died at 83, you died of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, septic shock at I think Muhammad Ali was 60, it's in the 70s, I believe, something like that. Doesn't say exactly how old he was, but he died in his late 70s, I believe, or 60s, almost in the 70s. But after being beat up for however many years, thing. Let's look. Chat said we needed Carrie Fisher over Gene Wilder. I could go with that. Carrie Fisher, she meant a lot to a lot of people, and she definitely would have been important. Would have been interesting to me if they had done Carrie Fisher. We would just highlighted all the positives or whatnot. Obviously it's not per se necessarily relevant to her death when they did release the autopsy. But when you're found with coke and heroin and ecstasy in your system when you're 70, she did a lot for mental health. She's an advocate for changing the way cons work and speaking out for rehab centers and the need to seek help. She was also really open about drug use. Yeah, but cocaine's very addictive. So is heroin, hell of addictive. I don't know. I get it. She was great for what she did. But kind of along the lines... not that I'm anti-drug per se, but you reach a certain point where she's 70, I believe. If she died at 71, I believe 61 or something like that, and you're doing cocaine, heroin, and ecstasy. Come on now. You gonna tell your all these people that are growing up hey, be advocates. You can do it. Let's do some heroin. That's the only problem I have with it. I guess it's also a celebrity status that I kind of talked about earlier before I met her with her. That just the drugs and everything else, we just kind of accept that from our celebrities. And I guess that's another thing when you start breaking down that, yeah. I don't care whether she never lied about it. That's not the point. The point is, if you're going to try to say she's an open role model and advocate for everything, she shouldn't be shooting up heroin and everything. So, I don't know. Like I said, celebrities, do some heroin, build a school. All is great. So, I know this is probably going to be one of the shorter ones. Might take some stuff in chat for a little bit. I didn't have a lot to say, because some of these older ones for me are a little harder since I wasn't on there. And so when they were choosing topics, obviously wasn't so much in mine. Not that I don't per se. Wouldn't be care would be the word. Just it's kind of hard for me to talk about so many things, reading these things when I wouldn't have either gone this way or, my opinion's a little different than other people on some of this stuff. But I think it's still a good episode. It should be listened to. It's definitely way, way back there a few months ago, so it's definitely buried down in there after all the stuff we've done. It is interesting, to say the least. It does give you a good perspective, at least from freak accident, young age actor that can kind of fit into the my generation type, where you can kind of connect to the older generation of Gene Wilder, to the sports and impact of society impact of Muhammad Ali and whatnot. So see what we got going on here in chat. If there's any questions about any of this we got going. I don't see much. Hey. Alright, I guess we'll go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. Oh, who would I have talked about? And we're just referring to 2016 deaths. I mean, based off of that list, if we had to go off of just the list that I'm looking at that was complete, or I guess we didn't see the complete list, but based off the notable ones people here, I honestly probably would have gone with Muhammad Ali from there. I'd have to probably see if I can pull up the exact complete list at this time so I can see every single people. Like I said, to me, we're going to talk about, if we want to really celebrate celebrity deaths, I want somebody who did something more. That list is 1/4. So I'm pulling up the actual deaths of everybody. See if I know anybody. Rickman, Dave, Tony Burton, Joe Santos, Prince, Muhammad Ali, Stephen Hill, Gary Marshall, Hugh O'Brien. Arnold Palmer died? Did not know that, actually. Huh. I didn't know he died. Fidel Castro. I mean, Arnold Palmer, because I think he's sports, so I'd probably be more relative to talk about compared to some of these other people. But as far as let me see who else here. Looking at Ilona Funk, Tony Burton, Robert Horton, Frank Sinatra Jr. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of these people, I have a problem associating with because they're way before my time. Like this one, Earl Hamner Jr. created the Walton TV show. I couldn't even tell you probably what the Waltons is. And if I could, I definitely haven't watched it. Billy Paul, Alan Young, Mr. Ed, apparently. I mean, I could talk about Gordie Howe. Oh, Gordie Howe. I mean, I enjoyed hockey. Except some of these people are sports, because actually, probably I have more of a connection there because I knew sports and whatnot. But besides that, I mean... Oh, damn. Pat Summitt died? I didn't realize... Oh, talk about downhill fast. I forgot all about that one. I could probably talk about Pat Summitt because how much she meant to college basketball, for women's college basketball, when it made it actually semi-relevant. And that great stuff with there. And then how she went from basically... I think she retired and or not really retired / dementia took over so fast that she had to basically... retired, I think almost 2 years ago, only 2 or 3 years ago, 2014, I believe it was, where she had to step down because of dementia, and she was dead already. I say she made college basketball relevant for women, that is. Buddy Ryan, Teddy Rooney. I mean, I just don't even. Kenny Baker was... Oh, that's the dude who played R2-D2. That's what that was about. September... I mean, actually, that could go a bit to Jose Fernandez. Actually, I do want to talk about Jose Fernandez and kind of bring back to the point about some things. So Jose Fernandez was a pretty good pitcher for the Florida Marlins, or excuse me, Miami Marlins. See, that's how long it was I watched baseball. He was a Cuban refugee. He was a starting pitcher. He was really good, even though he was hurt quite a bit. But he was great when he actually got to pitch. He was only 24 years old. He was kind of like apparently great for the community of Florida. And they wanted to put a stat, and there's still been controversy going on. I'm not sure exactly how it's played out, but they wanted to build a statue for him in front of the ballpark, which I have lots of problems with. We'll start with the sports part first. With one, he didn't really do. He was a great pitcher for. I think he was only on the team for 4 years and maybe only pitched for 2.5 between all the injuries. So it wasn't like he was going for Hall of Fame. I mean, maybe if he could stay healthy, but he wasn't being like super amazing. You know, like one playoff game made him to the playoffs, World Series championship. So in that sense, he didn't even like do. I mean, he was a good player, but compared to what he meant for the team. And then, so when it comes to sports statues, I'm all about like, I'd rather you be a great player for this team and mean something to the team than like, I guess, the other part for community aspect, which I know some people argue, but I guess when it comes outside of a stadium, people go there to watch you play, not what you do outside the stadium. But besides that, the main problem is, so one, he really wasn't like their best player in their history and all this other stuff. He died on a boat in a boating accident, killing 2 people. Basically, I think he was also high on cocaine and alcohol. I'm not sure if alcohol was actually involved in that one, but he died. He basically died, killed 2 people in the boating accident, high on drugs. And they were trying to put a statue up for him, and it's kind of like, if this guy lives, he's going to jail, and they're going to build a statue for him? Like, once again, we don't care what you do. If you build a school for us, where do we draw the line, I guess? I don't know exactly. I'd have to follow up and make sure and see exactly what has happened with that whole progress of the statue building. But there were so many people like mourning his death and all this other stuff, and it was sad. I mean, it was sad. He was a great player for the few years that he was, but he literally killed 2 people in an accident that was caused because he was high out of his mind on drugs. So, no, the statue is going to be in front of the stadium, not a community area, from my understanding of the whole aspect. But he killed 2 people. I mean, I don't know. It was, yeah. Keep going down the list. Bobby V singer, Leon Russell, Holly Dunn, Fidel Castro, Billy Chapin. Yeah, so I mean, looking at all this stuff, it's kind of like I don't relate to that. Carl Sager, I do know. He fought. He was best known for covering the NBA, and he had a lot of crazy suits. Players loved him because they started like embraced his suits because he would wear like these crazy like red and like black colored striped suits or polka dots. He'd wear a checkerboard one day and whatnot, and so he like embraced it and whatnot. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, looking at this list, unfortunately, like I said, I'm not old enough probably to embrace a lot of these people. I mean, these people are like 89, which means if you're an actor and you're 89, you died, that means you're probably in your prime, and say your 20s, let's even go into your 30s for the most part. I mean, that's 50 years ago. I wasn't born 50 years ago. So, yeah, that would be, so a lot of these people that coming up, it's going to be hard to I guess, to have that connection. So, yeah. Skimming through the list one more time. Make sure there's nobody else. Yeah. Alright, let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up here. Thanks for everybody for coming in here and listening to The Other Side of the Wormhole. So this has been episode 3, Celebrity Deaths. Excuse me, episode 2, Celebrity Deaths. I apologize. I don't know why I've always thought this was episode 3, but it's not. But yeah, episode 2, Celebrity Deaths. Why they matter, the worst deaths of 2016, whatnot. Please go check it out. This has been The Other Side of the Wormhole. What didn't make it in the episode for the But Why Though podcast. As a reminder, all these can be found on our website at butwhythoughpodcast.com and our YouTube channel, But Why Though PC. To listen to our actual full episodes, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, obviously our website, butwhythoughpodcast.com. To get in contact with us or just follow us and find all the news updates. If you'd like to be involved in the show or have questions or want something, feel that what I said was incorrect or wrong, or if something that we do in an episode was incorrect or wrong, or if we just happen to miss something, or even I missed something on the second time, feel free to let us know on one of our social media sites on Instagram and Twitter at ButWhyThoughPC, and you can also follow us on Facebook at ButWhyThough. I believe it's podcast or PC, whichever one fits. You can find me on Twitter at DATM18, DATTM18. Thanks for everybody, and hope you have a great day, or night, or morning. Something. Bye-bye.